Good morning, everyone. Today is April the 1st, but there are no fools up here. Well, is that debatable? I know. We're streaming live on our City Madison's YouTube channel and also archiving the meetings. Turn it over to the clerk for a roll call.
Mr. Carlo,
Here.
Mayor Courtney,
Here.
Mr. Eaglin,
Here. Board, have you had an opportunity to review the minutes from March 18th? If so, we'll entertain a motion to approve the minutes.
I make a motion to approve the minutes as printed.
Second that motion.
Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. Claims?
Mayor had an opportunity to review the claims. With that, I'll make a motion that the claims be approved as submitted, including 23 pages totaling $1,214,946.41.
I'll second David's motion.
Okay. Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? Thank you. Moving on, we have, looks like two unfinished business from carryover of last meeting. PACE funding request for 524 Jefferson Street, Madison Christian Health.
Tyree Jenkins is here to answer whatever additional questions the board has.
All right, thank you. Good morning, Tyree. How are you?
Good morning. How are you all?
Fantastic. Thank you.
Good.
So last meeting, we were approving this quarter's PACE recommendations, and the project that you were applying for at 524 Jefferson Street had a few questions related to it, particularly circling around the unsafe nature of the property. And I think Board Member Carlo here was just wanting you to come to the meeting and answer some questions on that regard. So thanks for being here.
Yeah, one of the concerns was the scope of this project in conjunction with the project you're currently undergoing at 705 Walnut Street. Is that correct?
Yes, it is.
And both project, taking on both projects of those magnitudes, concerning the funding of both projects, are they funded together, or are they separate projects, or I mean?
I listened to your last meeting, and it was about funding, and it was about conditional use. So I've talked to Nicole and other people several times about how the PACE grant works. My understanding is each property is a separate entity. It's separate PACE, it's separate objective, it's separate building. One has nothing to do with the other. So I'm here to answer you about 524 Jefferson, which has nothing to do with 705 Walnut, okay? So no, they're not being funded together. Just as your program stipulates, they're separate anyway, okay? We are not-for-profit. What your question was, according to the last meeting, was, well, is it contingent upon conditional use? Yes, it is. We are not-for-profit, correct? It's always been service for a not-for-profit. The mayor asked in the last meeting, since they're changing the use, we're actually not changing the use. What the city has done is you have new ordinances that if a property is in HDR, it can only be utilized for certain things, correct? So I'm showing up to go through and submit to this process. You can use it for housing, you can use it for assisted living, you can use it for room and board, you can use it for certain things. One thing you cannot use it for is charitable reasons, right? So, going with your terminology, we're like, okay, we're going to use this to help families, right? It's not a homeless shelter. Let me continue to reiterate, it's not a homeless shelter. It has never been proposed to be a homeless shelter. It wasn't proposed to be a room and board. It's to help families, as it always has. Always. When my parents had it, when the church had it, it always helped families. Now, to be able to use your terminology. Okay, room and board fits the terminology of the city for what it can be used for. Does it need conditional use? I have found out you've got to come through another board to get conditional use to use it for whatever reason. Are we seeking funding for whatever this not-for-profit going to use this property for? Yes, of course we are. That's what not-for-profits do. Is it going to be a single family? No. Is it for sale? No. They made this big parade at the last planning meeting, 50 people. Well, you know, it can't be used for this and this and this, and we think this won't be a good idea. A whole mob of people came in, why it can't be used, why the Jenkins shouldn't have it, this, that, and the other. So to answer your question, and then the next day, they literally sent me an offer for the building. I can show it to you. So the problem is, to me, moving forward with anything is just to be transparent to me from the city. What do you want? What do you want the building to be used for? It's not for sale. It hasn't been a house for 50 years. We're not changing the use. It's for families that have a need, that demonstrate a need. So send us this document, send us that document. We need this, we need that. I just want to cut to the chase. What do you want?
Ms. Jenkins,
Well, this board,
okay, go
we're not concerned with the use of the building.
Well, it was brought up in the last meeting. That's why I said.
That's not our,
Well,
you know,
it was
concern.
in the minutes. I went back and listened, and Nicole sent me an email. The board wants you to answer certain questions. So I went back and I listened to the meeting. I wrote down everything the mayor said, and one of the main things was conditional use and funding.
well, let me tie it together
Yeah.
for you. So, and I'll cut to the chase.
Yes, please.
And Dave is right. The Board of Zoning Appeals is the board that has jurisdiction over how the spaces will be used if it's, you know, requires a conditional use or a variance under our zoning ordinance, right? So that board is taking care of that. The reason the use issue came up in the approval of the PACE grant as it related to the unsafe building aspects of that structure. And so what we were trying to do was not condition, what we don't want to happen, Terry, is not condition the abatement of the unsafe structure on approval of the change in use. Because as you were pointing out earlier, that's a very different thing. So what we were really focused on was, it wasn't opposition to the grant at all. I appreciate you taking on this investment that's needed. It was about, let's focus on the issue this board governs, which is the unsafe structures. And that has been, you know, designated, I think you've probably received several communications from us about the unsafe nature of the structure, where that work needs to be abated. And that is completely separate from using the space for something different and actually, you know, finishing the entire project. But what we've observed multiple times, and not just you, is that the abatement of the unsafe elements of the structure kind of get merged in with the re-envisioning of the building itself. And instead of taking 60 or 90 days, as what the statute would require, to abate the unsafe elements of the structure, we're talking years. And that's what we're trying to do here, is saying, let's bifurcate your application and really have a good understanding as to when will the unsafe elements of the building be abated, because that's what is the threat to the community right now. Not just your structure, but over 100 of them. So we were trying to, like, okay, there's the PACE grant, it's $25,000. We know you're designing and re-envisioning how the property is going to be used. It's going through a different approval process, but let's just see if we can't isolate this PACE grant to get the unsafe elements abated as quickly as possible. And what would that schedule look like?
Okay, well, here's the thing about what you just said about let's just do the unsafe, right? Because it is not let's just do the unsafe, you know, because just like you guys change the ordinance or change the rules as we go, because it just happened to me with the other property, right? Well, we want you to do this, but to get the rest of that, we want you to do this, okay? So to do the unsafe part is not is really not the only focus for the city, right? Because it's like, well, we want you to do the whole gamut, because and you said this in the last meeting, because what we really want is, once we give you 25, I was going to say cents, but the 25,
5,000.
we want to see more. We're giving you 25 toward your whole thing, not just the unsafe. Now, I've got that clear now. So it's not just the unsafe. So what makes it more time and more costly is, okay, now do this, and now do this, and now do this. Now that's part of the whole project, right? So I do have proposed funding because naturally we have to put the money up first. It's not like you're giving us $25,000 and here, go do this with your $25,000. It's like, go get this done, then we'll give you money. So when it's all said and done, we have to have the money up front first anyway.
Well, sure, you're accruing those expenses, and then we pay after you've incurred the expense.
No, after we've paid the expense. The report asks for receipts.
Okay.
It's not proposed. The money has to be there, period. So the city's not giving us something that we do not have the capacity or the capability of doing. It's just all of this added stuff that comes along. We'll do this, this, and this, and this. Well, you got to do more of the project. We're giving you money toward the project.
Just clarify, we haven't changed any ordinances. Our zoning ordinance has been the same since probably
Well, maybe it's not an
2016.
ordinance, it's the rules, whatever it is.
Well, I mean, I think what's kind of getting muddied a little bit is the questions, asking the questions so we can understand the project better. And if I ask you a direct question, which is, will you be able to abate the unsafe elements of the structure that's been out there, at least in our knowledge, for a year and a half, maybe, I mean, I don't know when the last time the property was occupied, maybe 20 years ago.
Maybe.
It's a threat. So if we said directly, when will the unsafe structure be abated, what would your response to that be?
I would say okay.
Just the unsafe.
Okay, wait a minute. Let me make sure I understand the question directly,
Okay.
because I was here a couple of weeks ago, and only the unsafe that was attended to was not the only issue. So when you say the unsafe structure, do you mean the unsafe area or the whole building? The whole building.
I mean, our building inspector can speak to that more definitively, but it's, a threat to the property. It's a bad roofing structure, a collapsed wall, not proper, joists inside to keep the structure standing up, closure from elements and vermin and those types of things. It's the things that, that eliminate the threat of the building structurally. It's not finishing the drywall, getting the insulation in place, getting it ready for its next use. Again, we've tried to separate this because that's been a problem for a very, very long time. Now we have an opportunity. We don't want to wait a year or 2 years for the abatement of the unsafe element of
Yes.
it. And you're going to have to deal with that along the way anyway.
Right.
You have to shore up the building itself before you do any interior work.
Right.
So that's gotta be done
Actually,
first.
we're not changing the building. The only thing that we're doing differently in this building is repairing that area. We're not changing the use. We're not changing the structure, any of that. So I just want to make sure I'm answering your question
Okay.
directly, Mayor.
The unsafe
Because
items.
the painting, I mean, so from the last meeting I attended, it was the whole exterior, regardless to whether it was a part of the unsafe area or not. It was, let's get, the whole idea to abate unsafe and blighted properties. We want the whole outside. We want the exterior done. Well, I mean, that includes the other masonry that's not a part of the unsafe. That includes painting that's not a part of the unsafe. So I want to answer your question directly because you want Pacific time.
Yeah.
Right? So is it, when you say unsafe structure, not just that area or the roof or whatever for that north wall, are you saying you want to know when the whole unsafe structure, the whole building exteriorly will be done? Is that what you're asking me?
Well, For the most part, yes. Because,
Okay.
because when our money, and this is where we've learned along the way, we have funded hundreds of thousands of dollars into PACE projects
Yep.
that did not improve the exterior.
Right.
And this program started years ago as it's a preservation and community enhancement program. And so a property that we're funding public money toward shouldn't look the same when the money's funded. It should be an improvement,
I get it.
particularly to the curb appeal
Yeah.
aspects of it. And so
Yeah.
there's going to be elements of it where we're going to say, well, it's $25,000 investment on part of the city. Let's abate that unsafe structure so it's not a threat anymore, and paint the facade so those people driving by, from the outside, on the curb,
Yeah.
whoever, it's not going to look like it did before you started.
I get it. I
Yeah.
just wanted to make sure
Yeah.
that was what the direct question was, because that's different from the direct question of how long is it gonna take you to do the unsafe part? You just said, which is what you said about the other property, it's really the whole exterior. So you
Yeah.
want to know, not just the unsafe part, the whole exterior, because I don't wanna do it. That means we gotta do windows, we've gotta do doors, because we wanna do the masonry right, we wanna do the chimney right. So all of that, you're right, it takes more time, because it is more than the unsafe area.
And we wanted to break that down so that, because another part of our experience is a year goes by, not done, need another year, right? And in some instances, we're out to 2 years, and we still haven't abated the structure or enhanced the facade so that when people drive by, it looks like it's not
let
an
me make a
abandoned vacant
suggestion.
property.
If I had known a lot of this prior to, like, I didn't even know about a conditional
Yeah.
use, okay? Maybe there can be, some people on a committee or part of your board that has gone through this experience, so you can understand if, it could cut down a lot of time if we know up front. Okay, if you're gonna be, and you knew the building.
Yeah.
I mean, the city knew the building, the old building inspector knew the building, preservation knew the building. We've had ton of people, contractors, engineers, architects, we've had a ton of people go through that building for the last year. My problem is, here we are today, March 2024, having a PACE and conditional use and all that. And it's just because I wasn't informed. This is all new to me. I feel like it's
Do you have any estimates?
I have plenty. Yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
can you bring them to us? Do you
She
have?
has them.
Well, in response to that, it's a fair request to say, I need to sit down and get some guidance from you relative to all the steps that are necessary in order to bring this building back to life. But if you don't ask, we're gonna assume you know, and again, I'm assuming you may know some things that you may not know.
Why would
But it's-
anyone in the community know that you have, that there's all these ordinances, there's all the planning, public works? Why would any average person in the community know that there's all of these different boards and then they get delayed, and then you need to produce this and you need to produce that? I went to the PACE guidelines, I went to what any average citizen would do. We go to the website and we look for the guidelines. And if that's in the guidelines, then we know what to expect. We know that we have to do a conditional use. That's nowhere. So a lot of this time that
Well,
has
it's in
been,
the, I'm getting your point, but it's
Yeah.
in the zone, it's everywhere, meaning it's online and it's in our zoning ordinance.
if you know to look for it.
If you know, look for it.
Who's gonna
And
know
so,
that?
I mean, there may be instances where you don't know what you don't know, right?
Exactly.
And we don't know what you
All
don't
right.
know. So, but that's why all those resources are online. And then also, you can either ask us or engage a professional that knows all those
I
steps.
thought I thought my contractor, who's, Roca, they were, we do this all the time. We work with PACE, we work with the city, and they just went in and start tearing stuff out.
And the thing too is it's all different because we have probably 15 different zoning designations across the community. So, and each of them have their own.
But you have the
stipulation
planning,
requirements.
and I was working with planning, right? I was working with the building inspector, right? Those are your professionals. Those are the city representatives who was working with me for
Right,
over
but they're
a
not,
year.
but they're not your advisors. If you ask a question, it's not their responsibility to say, don't forget about these 10 things and then be your advisor. Every property owner still has the right to learn and hire the professionals that's necessary to take a property that you're trying to renovate through the entire processes, the permitting process that at the local and the state level, the zoning aspects of it, the unsafe elements to it, the contractor, subcontractor elements. There's a lot of nuances to it.
Well, you know what? You have the planning and zoning that takes us through the steps and the applications. All I'm saying is there should be more direct, visible information. Even before someone goes through, let me get an advisor, let me go to the city, let me get some supporters. There should be some kind of fine-tuned something. That's all I'm asking. Not just for me, for anyone that would go through this process that's coming to the city downtown that has a property. That's all I'm
Yeah,
asking.
that's a fair question. That is, how do you create a checklist that, sets forth every step that you're gonna have to take?
It's not
in a
every
property?
step. It could just be with your city planning. It's not every step. It's like, okay, or, if you're rehabbing, you gotta get a permit, especially with the last, okay, anyway, you got my point. Yeah. Okay, so when you talk about the whole building, I really don't have a question because it's not just I do have a pledge, but again, we're not for profit, yes. We have to get funding for all of our properties, yes, and it's based on its use, right? Now, my question would be, and maybe this is to the wrong board, if it's based on use, and we're not really changing the use, we're just trying to go along with the ordinances and their terminology. We're just calling it room and board. We can call it assisted living. We can call it orphanage. We can call it whatever, because, you've got all of these stipulations. And then once we say, okay, well, let's just call it room and board, it doesn't change what we're going to do because we called it a different name. You understand what I'm saying? So then the pledge we have for funding is based on the use. So I can't answer you when the whole building would be done.
Yeah, and I'm less concerned about the whole building.
Well, I mean the whole exterior.
And I want to bring it back to, I think this particular grant application, we need to have a little more thought and time frame relative to what does need to be abated relative to the unsafe building law and the inspection and citation that you've gotten about that. That, to me, needs to be a critical part of this PACE grant.
And you know what? I didn't ask to be here.
Yeah.
I didn't ask to be here. I didn't ask to be here now. I didn't ask for the 25,000 now. I'm just showing up to go through the process.
Yeah, and I appreciate you here.
Yeah, I'm just
Board Member
showing up.
Carlo had some questions at the last meeting.
Yeah.
And we were going back and forth, and you probably watched it. Well, should we approve it conditionally or just, there's nothing better than a face-to-face conversation sometimes.
Yeah,
Either tired.
because you know what, board, you guys want to abate these unsafe structures, granted, and they should be, but timing is everything, right? So if you want it done at a certain time frame, by a certain time frame, then that conditional use needs to be in place. If that's not going to be in place, because we have pledged for funding, but it goes back to, you want the whole exterior. You don't just want the unsafe part, because if you just want the unsafe part and next week I get conditional use, then we can have that done. It's going to be within that time frame. So it's all relative to the responses of the board.
Here's kind of what's merging. Merging is you as the property owner have the responsibility to abate the unsafe elements.
That's right.
That's your responsibility. And it's been out there it's been unsafe for years.
Number of
Yep.
Years, been cited as unsafe probably as far back as September of 2022, right? So you could hypothetically, not even hypothetically, but the way it's supposed to work is you get the citation that it's unsafe and you have a certain period of time to abate it, right? Now, what we try to do is help. And some ways we're not helpful because it sounds like you needed more information about what are all the steps for as you were envisioning what that property is going to be. We can work toward that. But the abatement piece of it is completely separate than PACE. What we're saying is, okay, we want to provide PACE because that'll help alleviate the financial burden of abating the unsafe structure and put you on the path of revitalizing that structure that we know is needed. But those are two separate things. What we're merging is, well, you need the PACE in order to do the project. In order to do the project, you gotta have a conditional use. In order to get the conditional use, you can't get or you have to have the conditional use before you can get the funding. We're still back to, regardless of the conditional use, that plan for the abatement of the unsafe structure has to be satisfied.
It does.
And so it can't be.
Okay, well, let's
It has
just-
nothing to do with the BZA's, view on
Yeah.
the use.
Yeah, okay. Well, let's just say we're only doing the unsafe, which is interior, and the building is secure. So then I would have to go back and debate, well, what makes this building unsafe to the public? Because it's interior. There's nothing on the outside of that building that makes it unsafe.
Well, there's walls, there's
There's
collapsing.
nothing on the outside of that building that makes it unsafe to the public. There's no walls on the outside falling. The building is unsafe. And here's the main thing about the building, that because it's a beautiful historic building, we want to preserve it. There is, when you look at the building, there is nothing damaging outside the building that makes it no one can go inside that building from the outside because it's unsafe. The building is really unsafe interiorly.
Well, I get that, because there are structural elements that's holding the building up.
Yeah.
There's structural elements that's keeping people from coming inside, right?
The
That's
wall
that's
is still
another-
there.
So there's a lot of work to do.
Yes, there is.
To take this off of our unsafe building list. And what I'm really saying is that it has nothing to do with the PACE grant. It has everything to do with the property owner being responsible to do it. Well, what we've tried to do is facilitate a
Yeah.
PACE grant so that the property can be revitalized and the unsafe elements abated. And that's what kind of got, when I say
Okay.
it all kind of got in here together, it's all part of the soup.
So let me ask-
But it
yeah.
shouldn't be confusing.
So let me ask you this, then if we don't do any PACE grant, zero, nothing, we will fix what we need to fix, and you guys have nothing to say about nothing, right? Now who's gonna do it? Maybe when, because we need to get it done. Not anything. You go away. Is that right?
Well, not necessarily, because there's still a inspection that has to happen.
Right.
Relative to how are you going to abate
I'm just
the
talking
unsafe
about
elements.
the area, not the painting, not the masonry,
that's right.
not the windows.
That's different.
That little part, that wall in that room, if that's done, all this other stuff you're demanding, that is, I don't remember what
Well,
maybe 200,000. So you're doing 25,000 for, and I gotta do the whole building, the exterior, cause you just said it.
what I was trying to really do here and accomplish was, let's break this project up.
Right.
So that we're not waiting a year and a half for the abatement of the unsafe element. I'd be happy if we had a scope of work that was required, right, to abate the unsafe elements. And the PACE grant, and you still got all your approvals, but the PACE grant, is going to help cover those costs. I'm not trying, we're not trying to take away the PACE grant.
No,
We're
that's
just saying-
fine. I
we're
just
just
wanna make
saying
sure I
that
understand.
Here we are, we're at this juncture where the building's unsafe, hasn't been abated. Now we have a request for a PACE grant to do a bunch of things with. I believe that this PACE grant could help fund abating the unsafe element of the property. But when you throw in the PACE grant, that's when the facade element comes in.
Okay.
If we park all this and just say, let's talk to the building inspector and planning and just focus on the unsafe elements of it, with no city money, then you just have the inspection you gotta deal with.
Okay,
And that may be the best approach.
yeah,
But that's what should only take, 90 to 120 days,
Yeah.
not a couple years.
that's right.
That's what our goal is.
I agree with that.
That's what our goal is.
That's my goal. I agree with that.
The items, the items that cause this building to be considered an unsafe structure are listed by the building inspector, so the list of items is already there. They just need to be addressed, so.
Yeah,
That's why I think if we just took a break, we're all on the same team, because we want you to be successful in what you're doing. We know the BZA is looking at your application for the use. We know that our building inspector and building and planning can work with you on the unsafe piece of it. I think that's where we need to maybe take a step back and
I
just
agree.
understand
I'm here
exactly
with
what's
Joe and
unsafe
Toby.
Yep.
and get that done.
that's perfect.
And that's separate than the PACE, and then
Yep.
if we have the plan for the unabated, for the unabated unsafe element,
just the unsafe.
then
Yep.
PACE can take care of itself.
That's right.
Can we reschedule a meeting with my group and you and go through that? Have you seen the building inspectors? I'm assuming you've gotten a letter of determination of the unsafe structure and what causes it to be unsafe?
I submitted that to
So I
as
think
part of the application.
I think if you all get together and just map that part of it out.
Well, I
with
asked,
the timeframe.
Nicole can tell you, I've asked her for a meeting since your last meeting because all of this came up and I wanted to have had that meeting before today. So, we wouldn't be going through this right now. I tried,
Well, I know, but Board Member Carlo would ask to be able to ask questions.
but Nicole
About it.
knows those questions. I'm just trying to figure out what
She,
you want.
Board Member Carlo, asked if you could come to this next meeting, and I'm glad you did, because now everything's out on the table and maybe a little more clarity. There's still some work to do on the unsafe piece of it, so.
Yeah,
And then
so I'm not coming back to this meeting. I'm going to meet with.
internal, yes, and
Yeah,
our building
please.
inspector,
Thank you.
Brian, is gonna say.
I
something.
have one
Oh,
question.
Yeah,
On your estimate here, this would bring this building just back to a family home.
and habitation, yeah, and
A
habitation.
family home, not rooms, boarding house type rooms. But 172,000 would bring us back to,
It's not a family home. It hasn't been a family home
But-
for 50 years. It will not bring it back to a family home.
Well, the zoning of it is the
family
dwelling.
home.
Well,
Right.
yeah, that's all of
That's the
downtown
zone.
except
Okay.
Main Street.
Okay.
We know that. But it won't bring it back to a family home. It will bring it back to what it is now. On that property, there's 4 totally separate units with about 9 rooms. 9 rooms. So no, it won't bring it to a family home.
So then that would be against the zoning for that area then.
Everything is against the zoning. That's why I said all your ordinances have changed, and that's why we have a conditional use process, right? Is that right? Okay.
All right, thank you. Brian?
I think what needs to be done, just like we did on Walnut, is I make an appointment with Ms. Jenkins and we walk it, and I can explain everything that's in the UBR that makes it unsafe, all 7 of those items.
Okay.
Then it's clear. So I'm open for whenever to meet her over there.
I think it's a good idea. Is that okay with you, Ms. Jenkins? Okay, all right. Any comments, questions on that? Any comments?
Well,
questions?
I just wanted to clear up for Ms. Jenkins that one of the reasons why I wanted you to come and appear in person was to avoid any he said, she said, asking questions that Nicole couldn't answer, that we needed face-to-face. To me, face-to-face communications is the best way to communicate.
Well, I feel like
And-
there hasn't been any resolve because, like you said, I need to now have that meeting with Nicole still. I mean, because we still vacillated from, I want the unsafe done to, well, we need the building done. So I mean, I'm still like, okay, can we just do the unsafe? Well, we wanna separate these different issues, so I feel like, still don't.
Well, I think you said it best as you were leaving the podium, which is park the whole PACE aspect of it and just deal with the unsafe, and that's one part of it. And then the PACE and the use issue takes care of itself, in my opinion.
Mayor, I mean, I think, so what we're here today is, there's an application that's before the board for a PACE grant for $25,000. Is that right?
We had tabled approval of that 25,000, pending this follow-up meeting. So
Pending
I'm
this
glad you
follow-up
brought that back up.
So, from a process standpoint, we either need to, obviously, we've discussed it today, so we've taken it off the table. You either need to move to table that again. You could table it until, if you wanted to table it until the, abated unsafe issues were done, and then you could deal with it. I think you could do that. I think or you could approve it pending that, there's lots of things that you could do, but you probably need to do some type of an action, whether it be table it or whatever.
Okay. I would propose we table the approval of the PACE grant. And Ms. Jenkins, you won't have to come back in the future, relative to the PACE piece of it. because what we'll do is get a report at the next meeting on the, unsafe element of it. So I think we can still keep this tabled, let that work its way out, and then this board at any time can approve. We've already earmarked the money, we can approve the grant.
That was a motion then to table.
I'll move that we table the PACE funding request for 525 Jefferson Street,
Okay, I'll second the motion.
pending the outcome on UBL. We have a second? Any discussion, comments, or questions? Hearing none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Jenkins. We have another, are you here to speak about the 755 West Third Street?
Yes, sir. I don't believe we have any representation
Okay.
here. So, for Joe as well, I'm not sure what the next, as far as we know, Mr. Wallace is still in the hospital.
Okay.
I have spoken with his grandson, Zach Hatton, who was intending to speak with him in the hospital. But I'm not sure where we go process-wise from here. Do we keep tabling? Do we?
I would table it and you continue to have dialogue with the owners of the property.
Okay.
Or leave it tabled. So it's already tabled. That doesn't require a motion, does it?
Yeah,
Is that okay with you?
I think, yeah, I definitely think we need to keep it in the forefront. So, you know, leave it tabled, so,
Can we send a letter?
until we have a resolution. This has
Can we
went on
send
too
a
long,
letter
so.
to the property owner, or have we already done that?
Well, we've done all of that, he's in the hospital.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay, okay.
The only other question, do we need to take any steps to,
Is the public in danger?
They have been for, yes. So, we had planned to talk about another property as well, about fencing. Perhaps that's where we go here.
it's up to you guys, but we should probably think about that a little bit.
Yeah.
So we'll present in 2 weeks?
Yep. We'll do a blight update then too.
Okay.
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 We'll leave that on there. Thank you. Moving on, new business. Bryant, water project, East Clarifier rehab. Oh,
Let's take an official action to keep that on the table though. So, because I think
okay.
the original letter requested that he come to the meeting. And so that's why it was on the agenda.
Okay.
And so that way, we'll just keep it on the table and that way we don't have to sit down.
I'll move we leave it, tabled.
You made
I'll
a motion?
Move.
Second?
Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thanks.
Okay, well, there's a little error in the agenda. It's not the water project, it's a wastewater. East Clarifier, rehab quotes.
I knew what it meant,
Yeah, I know.
'cause we've talked about the other clarifier.
Yeah, we already did the other one, and these are basically the quotes we got for the last one. We did the west one, now we're gonna do the east one. However, the east clarifier quote came in a little bit cheaper from one of the others, Gruber Industries on that sheet you have there. We used CBET Consulting on the first one. We're gonna use Gruber on this one. It's around $4,000 cheaper. And, we'll probably do that in the dry weather. I just wanted to give you guys a heads up of what's going on.
Ron, were there any conditions on that quote, like the other ones had, two of the other ones had conditions?
No. Most of that stuff we do anyway, but a lot of the contractors, I guess they've had issues in other places, like where you see where it's the tank must be empty and clean. The tank has to be empty and clean when we have them do it.
Yeah.
We supply a dumpster, we do that anyway.
Okay.
And it says supply electricity, which we're gonna do that anyway, but I guess some of the contractors had issues in the past with getting those certain items from the wastewater
Do we need
plants.
to take, so you want us to take action on approving the Gruber quote?
Yes,
Okay.
Now,
yes, sir.
explain to me the difference in the Gruber Industries quote and the GBET.
As it relates to, they're basically doing the same thing. They're
Well, I'm-
basically rehabbing the clarifier the same exact way. The only difference between the two is you see the Gruber, they use the Belzona material, and the CBET used a different type of material.
Okay, I'm seeing an $82,000 figure for Gruber.
Mhm.
And then going across 74,925 for GBET.
Well, that's the west clarifier. Look down a little bit. It says the east clarifier.
Okay.
you gotta compare the east clarifier quotes.
Okay. The way it was presented is a little bit confusing, but, okay, I see where you're at now.
Explain what the clarifier does, because it sounds like a very important, piece of our
Well,
infrastructure.
we have several clarifiers in the plant. These are the primary clarifiers where the waste comes in and it separates the solids, which sink, and the floatables, which float, and then we have a system that scrapes off the top and scrapes off the bottom. That's waste. I don't want to get in too much detail, but let's just call it wastewater.
Well-
That's deep enough.
Thank you for clarifying that, Brian.
That's what gets hauled away eventually.
Oh, okay, yeah, yes.
Now, will the operation of the plant be 100%?
Yeah, we do that in dry weather, so
Okay.
Yeah.
obviously we have multiple clarifiers and we use fewer when it's not raining than when
Okay.
it is raining.
Okay.
And so the last one we did was in July, August time,
So-
when obviously it's drier. If it's dry enough, I mean, that's our only stipulation on this company is, you have to wait till it's dry weather. And really, if it's dry for a while, and as long as it's not raining, because you have antecedent conditions when it's rain and the ground's saturated, if it's dry for a while, then the ground can soak up a lot of the water.
So no problem with the operation of the
No.
plant whatsoever?
No, sir. Yes.
I'll move that we approve the Gruber Industries proposal for the east clarifier and our wastewater infrastructure in the amount of $82,000.
I'll second that motion.
Any discussion?
Thank
Comments or questions? All in favor, please say aye.
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 Aye. Thank you. Thanks, Brian. All right, now we're moving on to the fun stuff. Joe?
This is resolution number 2024-17B, a resolution of the Board of Public Works and Safety of the City of Madison, Indiana, regarding the street closing for Rockin' on the River. Whereas there's been a request filed by Angela Birch and Laura Lineweber on behalf of the Salvation Army of Jefferson County for street closings in connection with their Rockin' on the River to be held on Saturday, August 31st, 2024. Now therefore be it resolved by the Board of Public Works and Safety of the City of Madison, Indiana, that the following streets shall be closed on Saturday, August 31st, 2024 from 7 a.m. to 9 p.m. Vaughn Drive from the west side of the West Street to the west side of Elm Street. Elm Street, Broadway Street, Poplar Street, all south from the First Street to Vaughn Drive, and Central Avenue south from the gate to Vaughn Drive. Be it further resolved by the Board of Public Works and Safety of the City of Madison, Indiana, that said streets as closed shall be under the supervision and control of the Salvation Army of Jefferson County at the times noted above for the year 2024.
Good morning. Thanks for being here.
Good
Angela.
morning.
Same event, same footprint?
It's gonna be the same event. Last year, we did not close down Elm, so this year we're just asking for it.
Well, and so this is what we're gonna run into, I think, with a lot of our riverfront events, is the pool. And I think that we need to be cognizant of the fact that we need parking on Elm and Broadway for Crystal Beach, because the last couple of years hasn't been an issue because we've been under construction. But we have a long footprint of Vaughn Drive to work with. So I wanted to ask you about Broadway and Elm Streets, and particularly the west side of Broadway, maybe not so much on the east side, but I also want the board's opinion on this too. We just need to be cognizant of the fact that our pool is operational again, and we're gonna have parking needs, that's gonna overlap many of the riverfront festivals.
It's gonna be tight.
Yeah, how many cars you're expecting?
I don't expect any more than 300. So, and we gave up, West Street, cause it interfered with the ice cream shop.
West Street? Talking about Mulberry maybe? Or, I'm sorry, the ice cream shop?
Yeah, the little Chillbillies that's
Chillbillies.
there.
Yes, okay.
Yeah, so we had that street and then we gave it up.
I thought it was all on Vaughn Drive.
It was last year. It was last year, and then we asked for Broadway, cause we gave up that street, so we could go up that way with our registration and parking people.
So, and there may be a time frame where that's okay, and just like we experienced with, the River Rat Rod Car Show, cause they're expecting 700 cars this year. But, in yours, for example, if you're using Broadway for registration, aren't they normally in by a certain time? Like the pool
Yes.
opens at noon.
Yes.
So there might be a situation where you could still use that as a registration area, and I don't know if you're using the Brown Gym or anything like that. But there could still be a time where that's okay. It's just parking cars north of Vaughn Drive around Crystal Beach is gonna be a problem this year.
So even on Vaughn Drive, you want that?
No, Vaughn Drive's okay.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay, so you just want Broadway to be
Broadway and Elm,
Broadway and Elm.
Broadway and Elm. So rather than going up, a half a block, just stretch out a half a block.
Could
from
we
Vaughn.
go further east
Go
and further
further east
west
or
on
further
Vaughn
west?
Drive?
On Vaughn Drive, gotcha. My brain was stuck.
I'm foggy about it
Gotcha.
too. And we know that we don't have sound all the way east, probably past Fireman's Park, I guess. But we have sound west. And this is gonna be in August, so, the new, the lot, the parking lot there at Coskin Park is gonna be open and available by then, so
Okay,
you'll still be able to use that lot.
that's an idea. If we put the food trucks, make them unhitch from their trucks and put the food trucks there in front of Central Park, cause there's water and electric there, and then park more cars in that area, we'll be ready. I'm not sure what we call that. I keep calling it the parking lot.
Parking lot.
That's what I keep calling
It's
it.
the,
Parking lot.
Indiana's Music City Amphitheater parking lot to
Oh.
just be attached to the Bicentennial Park.
Sounds good. Yeah,
So will that work for you then, giving up Elm Street?
we'll make it happen.
Elmer Broadway, thank you.
I had one other question. And this comes up a lot with our festivals and other events we have on Vaughn Drive, on the riverfront. You've got Poplar Street south of First Street. Poplar Street unlike Central, it's a residential street. My question is, I guess, why do you need north of the gate on Poplar Street? Could we close Poplar Street at the gate?
That's usually
Like
what
we
they
did on
do.
Central Avenue?
That's
So-
usually what they do. There's two gates there.
Well,
So
there's
they
no
could-
emission, so, I mean, the gates are the gates gone? Maybe the gates are still there, I can't.
I'm
Yeah, I
not
can't
sure.
remember.
Well, I know
drove
you're just
by
blocking
there.
vehicular access from coming into the car show
Yes.
footprint.
Yes, that's what we want. We don't want anybody
You're not
coming in
parking,
that
you're not
way.
parking show cars on Poplar or Central, right?
Correct. Correct. You're just not able to come down those streets to come onto Vaughn.
So
That way,
I
if you
think
wanna
his
come,
point
you
is a
can
good
just-
one, which is, south from gate to Vaughn Drive, okay, so that is, I think that's what it does say.
The gate may not be there, but I think, is the fence still
Yep.
there? So we could go the south of the fence.
Yeah, there's something there because I know it's open at times and the city will come in to do the electric and stuff, and then when they leave, they're locking those when they
Right.
leave. Cause we've never locked them. They've opened them and then they've locked them back
And Kenny does
before the event starts.
I just know when we close Poplar at First Street, it's an inconvenience for the residents that
Yeah,
live
it's
there.
not closed
so.
up. That's my mistake. It's closed on down where that gate comes
Yeah.
across there. Yes.
So do we want to amend
Well-
this resolution or?
So we're amending, we are by this motion amending the resolution to, restrict parking and not include Elm Street or Broadway Street.
And then extend it east and
And I
west
think
on
your
Bond
point here,
Drive?
really, it's, yeah, so they get all of Vaughn Drive, so instead of west of West Street, it could be west of West Street to the west side of Elm Street, you could go a couple blocks further, you could go to,
The
Vine
west side of
Street.
Jefferson Street?
go to Vine Street, and you could go to Jefferson Street, that'd give you plenty of footprint.
Okay.
And you wouldn't be closing, you'd only be closing south of, on Poplar, south to Vaughn Drive, and same thing on Central, south to Vaughn Drive,
Correct.
just for the vehicular closing, so people
Correct.
can't drive into your footprint, right?
Hey, Mayor, what was the Bond Drive, and we're switching this from west side of West Street to the,
It'll be the, east side of Vine Street
And the west side of Jefferson.
and west side of Jefferson. you're still opening up the road to the rest of the footprint. So Central Avenue and Poplar Street, south from the gate to Vaughn Drive.
Work number 3 reads.
Is that okay, Angela?
That's good,
All
we'll
right.
make it work.
Okay. With those changes, then I make a motion we approve resolution 2024-17B.
I'll second that. Any discussion? Comments or questions? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. Thanks, Angela.
Thank you all for your
this.
time.
All right, moving on. 18B. Chief, got two of these. 18B and 19B. Good morning. See, you're ready for the eclipse.
Always prepared. Yes, well, the first application we had was for a handicap parking spot at Madison Dental Health at Vernon and Main. I don't see any issues. There's no other handicap spots in that block of Vernon or that block of Main Street for their customers to park at.
I agree.
So I think maybe one at Vernon, on Vernon at Main would be a good spot.
Very first spot.
Yes,
Yeah,
right
I
up
agree.
right up at Main Street.
Yeah. Or you could park them in front of Dave's house.
Well, I thought we might.
They already do.
Yeah. I'll move that we approve resolution 2024-18B
Second.
for Dental Health Partners.
Should this be read?
Oh, sorry, Joe.
Okay.
This is a resolution, you read it by title? You want to read it in here by
I agree.
title?
Okay.
Okay. All right. Take both of these in a batch, and that is in front of the Henderson
Yes.
property, and I've spoke with Mrs. Henderson about issues down there, because there's more parking, with the large trailer,
Yeah.
down there, and an RV that's showing up occasionally.
But again, there's no handicap stalls, in that block of Main Street or St. Michael's.
It's between St. Michael's and,
That's Baltimore.
Baltimore, yeah.
Okay, so, yeah.
So I'll move that I'll amend my motion and move that we approve resolutions 24-18B and 24-19B.
Second the mayor's motion.
Any discussion? Comments or questions? On favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Thank you.
Fantastic job, chief. Keep it up.
The next thing, the emergency weather sirens. I'd like to see if we can discuss amending how those are, or when those are engaged or set off. Currently, the dispatch's SOP reads that if there's a severe thunderstorm warning or tornado warning within 30 miles of Jefferson County, they are to set those off. And I think that's causing problems. People are just numb to the sirens. They don't pay attention to them. I've done it myself. I took off the Thursday of the tornado. I was at home in my garage. I heard the sirens and I just kept doing what I was doing because they get set off so frequently that people don't pay attention to them anymore. So on some research, most communities, they're either just for tornado warnings, or if they do severe thunderstorm, they have to have over 75-mile-per-hour winds. A severe thunderstorm warning is 58 or above. So they brought that up to 75, which, is when you're in a chance for severe damage. So I don't know what your all's thoughts and opinions are, but
I think it's a discussion that's been needing to happen for a while. And you're right, I think that we've conditioned ourselves to not take the sirens seriously, because it can be a clear day, but 30 miles away, there might be something going on, and dispatch gets a weather alert, and they're sounding off the sirens, and it's not lunchtime.
Right.
You know, used to be lunchtime, sirens are going off. So I think it's a great conversation, and I would support it. I'd like to build some consensus amongst others, you know, the fire department, the 911, EMA.
Yeah.
If-
I've talked to EMA and he's in agreement that there needs to be a change made. Him and I are on the same train of thought that people are just numb to them.
Okay.
And another, you know, something else to go along with that, when the sirens were installed in the 80s, there was a average, you had a 5-minute warning for tornadoes. With the advances in technology, we're at an average of 10 minutes for a tornado warning. So I think that 10 minutes is probably sufficient for everybody that's outside to find shelter. So I think they need to be just for tornado warnings. But if we want to strike a compromise, we can do the thunderstorm with a set limit on the miles per hour
On the wind,
winds.
on the wind.
Yeah.
I think that's a good approach to consider.
That, I've got two questions, or one concern and one question. First one, straight line winds can be just as destructive as a tornado.
Yes.
And you see straight line winds a lot of times in the thunderstorms.
Right.
So I think that's one thing that needs to be
Right, and I think
considered.
that's why a lot of communities put in there, you know, it has to minimum of 75
Yeah.
mile per hour winds, and then that's,
And then another question is, are sirens capable of, I know some communities have different sounds for different events.
yeah.
Like, they may have one sound for a tornado, a different blast for a thunderstorm, and then a different blast for like a hazardous material situation that might occur. Are sirens capable of changing the sound?
I don't believe so. I think I spoke with Chief Washer about that, and he said no, but I've had a lot of conversations with him about that, so I'll have to double check, but I don't think they have that capability.
And something else, I mean, it's strictly my opinion, ever since it was great that the sirens were installed. I feel like probably we need to look at maybe more sirens, you know, maybe one or two more downtown.
I've heard people say that,
And I know the sirens, they're outside sirens, they're
Right.
not to be, I think people are misinterpreted. They're not made to be heard indoors.
right. If
And-
they can be, it's great, but that's not the
Yeah,
intentions behind them.
if you live a block away like I do, yeah, you hear
And
it
they can't be
indoors.
heard all across the city. I mean,
Right.
They're only in certain locations.
Right.
Yeah, so that's one thing that I've thought for a long time, that maybe we need to, study, you know, is there funding available? Maybe we can upgrade our sirens and add additional sirens throughout the community.
So, from speaking with Kenny Washer, he said that these were installed in the 80s from a grant and the fire department, that was all through the fire department at the time. So I don't know if there's still funding available somewhere, if that needs to go through the fire department. I have no opposition to adding more sirens if we need them.
That might be something Homeland Security,
Yeah.
And again, it's a good conversation to have, which is, do you pull back or do you add and change? There's a lot of options here, as
Right.
David's bringing up. Worth the dialogue to have so that we can get it right and make our community safe.
I totally agree with you though on the confusion. Every time they go off, I see it on social media, you know, people complaining and, you know, like the mayor said, you know,
Yeah.
the
and
skies are clear and the
Yeah.
sun's shining and the sirens are going off. Well,
Right.
people are confused why.
I
you
think
know.
whatever we decide or whatever we do, we need to push that out to the community so everybody knows.
Right.
These are the circumstances when we will set these off.
And I totally agree that, you know, we need to open up a discussion and come up with a solution, so.
So how do we come up with a solution?
More dialogue, and let's give it a few more weeks and come back and report maybe at the May meeting.
Okay, perfect.
Thank you, Chief.
All right. Anything else for me?
Thank
Thank you. Tanya, professional services agreement with Sunset Cinema for movies in the park. Good afternoon.
Hello. Yeah, the dates are on there for the movies in the park this summer, and this is the same company that has provided our services in the past. Do a phenomenal job.
So, where are you landing on movie titles?
I knew you were
Important
gonna ask me that. The survey just ended Friday, so I do
Survey
have
says?
winners.
Who said survey says?
What?
Who's famous for saying survey says?
It's a game show.
Game
Alex Trebek or one of the, is that it?
No?
No? I don't know. I don't watch game shows.
Okay, I digress.
She
Yeah,
may be too
Tammy
young
said you
for
need
that.
to go.
She probably is too young for that.
May 24th is Back to the Future for the car show weekend. July 3rd is the Wednesday of Regatta, and that one is, we're showing Madison. July 26th is Wonka, the new one. August 23rd is Mary Poppins, one of the classics, beat out a lot of the newer cartoons. And October 4th is Scoob.
It's what?
Scooby-Doo,
Scooby-Doo.
yeah.
Scooby?
Scoob,
Scooby-Doo?
yeah.
I just think American Graffiti would be more appropriate for the car show weekend, but
What would be more
lost.
appropriate?
How many times did you vote that in the,
American
survey?
Graffiti,
Oh,
not near enough, obviously it lost. So, we'll let that go.
I move that we approve now, we're still fundraising for the movies and fireworks, is that correct?
we are, letters just went out last week, emails. We do already have a great start on the movies in the park. Saddam, is the title sponsor for that.
That's
We've already
awesome.
got 6,000 towards
Great.
the movies in the park.
Fantastic.
so.
Thank you to all of our sponsors, current and past, that bring these cool things to our
Absolutely,
community.
couldn't do it without
Free of
them.
charge. You wanna talk about Zambelli at the same time?
You
Sure.
wanna vote on that?
Well, can we just do them together?
Sure.
Two contracts, thank you.
This one again, same company providing service for the fireworks. They require half up front.
And we have a sponsor with that,
Yeah,
Working on it.
working on it.
Don't have the title sponsor yet, but
I move that we approve both, agreements with Sunset Cinema and Zambelli Fireworks.
I'll second the motion.
Any discussion, comments, or questions? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Thanks.
thank you.
Thank you. Pace, back to pace. Back to the future.
I have one midpoint, two extensions, and a final for you. The midpoint, 821 Walnut Street, has completed over half of their PACE grant. This is a dilapidated structure grant. Their work that's been completed includes demoing the unsafe dilapidated portion of the rear structure, and then they're cleaning out the debris, and then they've started working on the floor joist on the interior. So they're asking for the disbursement of $12,500.
I'll make a motion, we approve the PACE midpoint for 821 Walnut.
I'll second that. Any discussion? Comments or questions? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you.
821 Walnut Street is also asking for an extension. Previously, the board gave them 90 days to get us a scope of work, which they complied with. So they're asking for the additional 2 months, making their final deadline May 10th, 2024.
Is that gonna be sufficient?
That is the longest they can apply for under the
Oh,
grant.
okay, all right, we'll do that. We'll probably see this one again because it's showing here that it's, August before they.
They have some scope of work that was not included in their PACE grant that they've outlined for us as part of the unsafe structure. So they're anticipating completing everything that's part of their PACE grant in April.
Does this include painting the facade?
Yes.
Thank you.
And there's another extension, we're gonna do those together.
Yep.
Yep.
The last extension is for 907 West Main Street. Steve and Jay Martin are working on this dilapidated structure. They're asking for a 4-month extension to July 22nd, 2024. This is their second extension. They've recently switched contractors for the door and window work, so they're just waiting on delivery and installation now, but everything's been ordered.
Is this the property up there just
Just
past
had-
Craigmont?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
This, yeah.
Looks really
this-
pretty what they've done, looks
Yeah,
really,
Yes,
it
it
was
does.
blue, they've,
oh, there it is.
yeah.
Donut shop.
Looks beautiful.
Yeah,
I make a motion that we approve the extensions for 821 and 907 West Main.
I'll second.
821 Walnut.
Any discussion, comments, or questions? Hearing none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thanks.
One final for you, 208
Very
East Main Street. Unfortunately, this is the only before photo I have for you. Don't know how that happened.
Wow.
If you're not familiar with the property, I'm sorry. But
We're all
this is-
familiar with that one.
Yeah, this is a dilapidated structure, for 25,000. They have completed, their renovations of, this one half. They've done a great job, everything from paint, tuck pointing windows, doors, rebuilding the storefront. And
Beautiful.
they're asking for the full disbursement of the 25,000.
Amazing restoration, really grateful for the Becks taking that on and investing in Main Street.
I'll make a motion, we approve the final for 208 East Main Street.
I'll second David's motion.
Any discussion? Comments or questions? Hearing none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. Before we move on to, that's all pace, right? Nicole? I don't know if you got a copy of this, but here was a sidewalk closing request from FC Tucker for a CASA event, April the 7th from, it looks like 10:30 to 2:30. And,
Where at?
it's in front of, looks like it's in front of their store at 201 West Main, right here. It's got four parking spaces, actually. So reserving 4 parking spaces, April the 7th for 4 hours in front of FC Tucker. You okay with that?
See, that's next Monday.
Be Sunday?
Yeah, Sunday,
Sunday?
yeah.
This Sunday?
And I'll make a motion to
Okay.
approve with the closure of the sidewalks.
I'll second that. Any questions? Comments? Hearing none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thanks. Moving on, mayor's comments, as you'll continue to see, lots of construction happening, both on the hilltop and downtown, particularly noticeable downtown in the corridor here on Second Street between West and Jefferson. A lot of sidewalk, roads, gutters, curbing, handicap ramps, and construction of a new grocery store happening there. So appreciate everybody's patience with the inconvenience that causes, but it's already starting to take shape, and you can see how beautiful that's going to be looking. I will mention and ask really the public to help us here, but as we have bad weather, or if you're doing yard work now that it's spring, and you have leaves and small branches that you're trimming, please put those in a compost bag and we'll pick it up. What's happening all over town is grass clippings, small branches, leaves, even big branches. They get put in the gutter. And then when it rains, it clogs up our storm drains. When our storm drains are clogged up, it causes flooding. And we don't want that. Please follow what our guidelines are, which is nothing should go in your gutter. Absolutely nothing. That's it for me. We'll open it up to public comment. If anybody's here who'd like to address the Board of Public Works and Safety, please come to the podium, identify your name and address, and what your remarks are.
Debbie Beeman, 709 Walnut.
Hi, Debbie.
Hey, this is going to be mostly my opinion. Y'all can take it or leave it. But today, when Tyree Jenkins was speaking, I'm telling you all, I live next to 705, and she has done nothing to that property. Y'all can think she has, but she's not done nothing to that property in this past year and a half. They did tear down the back of a room that burned and put a foundation like a year ago, and that's been it since then.
Debbie, I'm going to stop you there because they have done a lot to that property based on what we've asked them to do to abate the unsafe structure.
see
And
it.
at the last meeting when she was
I
here,
don't see it.
her and our building inspector went to that property, and there was just an all but maybe 10 or 15% of what was required to abate the unsafe structure was completed. So I think that we need to,
So the inside with the floor gone and all of that
it
is,
was all inspected, and it may look like the building's unstable if you don't see floor joists there, but it's been
No
inspected.
floor.
What we're trying to do is, just like what we had the conversation earlier today, reduce the threat of safety or nuisance or vermin or access, and with our unsafe building. That's very different than the pace. So I know that's why we're talking about today. Sometimes those two things get merged, but
Right, I'm talking
she was
about
85% complete done with abating the unsafe element of that structure, which is way better than it was just as recent as 3 or 4 years ago.
see, I just don't see it that way, because when I was getting in the car to come here today, there were 2 homeless people sitting there right on her stoop. So, I mean,
And that's a very different thing. They could be sitting in front of the courthouse. I'm just saying, if we're
no,
compartmentalized, I'm just trying to address your statement, which is nothing has been done to that
well,
property.
that's what it looks like, and that's what it looks
And-
like to the homeless and the drug addicts, because they still are hanging out there.
Well, that's
and
a
I
different,
live
that's a
right
different
there.
issue. That's a very different issue.
If it
And that's
looked,
one that if you see loitering or people gaining unauthorized access to that property, call the police.
I do, Bob, I get tired of having to call the police, because people won't fix their buildings.
We're working on that, and you've seen hundreds of
Today-
examples through PACE program
Today
where
in
that's
here,
happening.
here's what I saw. Also, blame on the city, the boards, even Nicole today, and entitlement.
Debbie,
I know, Bob.
sorry, you're making personal comments now,
Well,
but I tried to address your
because-
comment with regard to the unsafe aspects of
I
the
can't-
building.
She can stand up here and say all the stuff she wants.
We know that you're in an area that we're still coming back for, and it's coming, it's happening, the changes are happening. It just takes a lot of time. These are not easy projects, and they're definitely not inexpensive projects, but they've been sitting there like that for 30 years.
Exactly.
And so,
And to,
and what happens
and to
often,
say-
I'll just say candidly, what happens often, right, is they sit there for 30 years, nobody says anything, and then we start working on them, and you can't get it done fast enough.
And, well, if you saw any progress, if I saw any progress, it'd be different. Cornerstone's over there finally working on that place. I see progress.
Both of those structures, and just earlier today, there was another one on North Walnut Street. Big progress. There's a whole sequence to it. I know that you're frustrated. These things just take time. There's no magic wand to it.
Especially with some people that you
Well,
deal
let's
with.
not make it personal here.
Thanks.
Thank you. Any other public comment?
I know I'm not
Oh.
technically a member of the public, but I just wanted to note for the public, Clifty Drive, is gonna have some lane closure starting after April 8th, for the work that NDOT is doing as part of our sidewalk project, repaving and, overhead utilities.
Perfect. I'm glad you mentioned that, because as we're talking about the inconvenience of construction downtown, it's gonna be noticeable there, because that's a very busy corridor with
Yeah.
probably 15,000 cars or more a day on it. April 8th.
April 8th.
It's after April 8th.
After April 8th,
On there.
for the rest of the year. But no, that's one that's been years in planning. It's gone through its supply chain issues, gone through bidding issues, and now it's finally been let, and it's a $12 million project between the city and NDOT, so it's much needed infrastructure.
It takes patience.
A little patience, as Axl Rose would say. Tough crowd. Any other public comments? Mr. Jules, great to see you, sir. Do you have anything you want to add today? Shelby? Jan? All right, we're covered. Our next meeting is Monday, April the
I
15th.
got one comment.
Oh.
I'd like to congratulate Scott County boys for winning the state tournament.
Oh, yeah, that was
It's the
great.
first time for those folks, and I think it was a big deal. Hey, congratulations, Scottsburg.
Thank you.
Had
The
fun.
Warriors Next meeting's Monday, April 15th. Motion
Motion
adjourned.
Second?
All in favor, please say aye.
All right.
Thank you.